Okay, so again, thank you everybody for being here with me today. My name is Professor Kalsee kohs. I'm a professor here at Divination Academy. If you've never been with us before at Divination Academy, welcome. We are so happy to have you, and we're so happy that you found us. I'm going to put some links here into the chat for you that will be important for you. And the first one's going to be the link to our Facebook page. The second one's going to be the link to our website. And the third one's going to be the link to our YouTube. So for the Facebook page, after today, if you haven't been with us before and you like what you see, I would definitely recommend that you enroll as a student with us. You can do that by sending a direct message to our Facebook page saying you'd like to enroll as a student. When you do so, you get access to our private Facebook community, you get access to our chats, you get access to certification programs, private apprenticeships, study groups, a lot of stuff. So definitely enroll with us if you like what you see here today, because we'd love to have you. And it's free. We'll never ask you for anything. Everything that we do is free. That is our philosophy. That's what we believe in. We believe educational should be free and accessible to everybody. That is key for us. When it comes to our website, take a peek at it. We have lots of resources on there. We have professors' bibliography pages. We have their study guides. We have books. We have a lot of different resources. We have information about the professors. There's information about the certification programs you can take, the private apprenticeships you can do. All that's on the website. And again, if you miss any classes, all the study guides will end up there. So they will all be there. Sometimes it may take us a little bit to get them to the website, but I promise you, they'll get there. There's this link for the study guide today in the chat there for you. I saw that pop up. Okay. And then with the YouTube page, definitely check out our YouTube. That's where almost all of our classes get posted. It can take a couple weeks before they get posted, so please be patient. Alex reviews every single one of them. So she watches every single one of them before they get posted. So just be patient. Sometimes it can take a little bit, but it will end up there. All of my classes will for sure. Almost all of the other classes end up there as well. I think right now we have 140 though that you can go watch. Lots of different class topics. Go check it out. There's lots of cool stuff on there. The last little bit of housekeeping that I do is a little bit about myself and then a little bit about the class and kind of the premise of what I kind of expect with this class and how I teach it. So first, a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Professor Kalsee kohs. I have been a solitary practitioner for about 15 plus years. I am a gray witch. I am a mystic witch. I pull from all pantheons, all cultures. I pull from a lot of different paths. I've learned from a lot of different masters underneath shamanism, witchcraft, magic, pagan cultures, pagan religions. I look at it from a historical perspective. I look at it from an archaeological perspective. I pull in everything when it comes to my path. I also pull from everywhere. So with me being a gray witch, that means I pull from what people consider love and light and what people consider baneful. So again, you will see that when I call a circle, when I cast, when I invoke, you will have all that energy there. I'm not a love and light only practitioner. So I always like to preface that because some people that may be a problem. And if that is, that's totally fine. I'll never get offended if you leave for an invocation because of that. I am totally, everybody has their own path and that's totally okay with me. The last little bit is because I'm a gray practitioner, I am not teaching these classes as a way to like scare or warn or have people be protected against a dark goddess. I'm teaching these as if we are coming them from absolute reverence and respect to work alongside them. It's building a relationship with them. And I am coming to teach them from all perspectives. So if you do work with Lady Hel already, I may say something that's a little bit different, and I try to pull every single perspective that I can find, every single way that she is used. I know I myself, from when I've talked to other people, I do work with her a little bit differently than other people do. So I share how I do, and then I share what I hear from most people, and then all the different ways that I've been taught. I also will teach you her mythology. There's not a lot to her, unfortunately. If you've looked at the study guide, this one's not quite as meaty. There's not quite as much mythology for her, which really sucks. I wish she had more. But she is still a very, very complex character. She's very big. There's a lot to her. So again, I'm going to teach you all of that. So again, please come at it with reverence and respect. That's super, super important for me. I know the Norse mythos. I know, Robin. It drives me nuts. They lost so much of it because of Christianity, and I could go on a whole spiel on that, and I'm not going to today. I'm going to try really hard not to. I will have to touch though on Christianity for a little bit when we talk about Hel versus Hell. which we're gonna get into, and how that even came to be, and why it ended up that way. And so we will go over that. Also, if you're coming at Hel from the Marvel perspective, please shove that out the window right now. I have a whole section in the study guide about every single way they did that wrong, about how they even did Ragnarok wrong. Like, please shove that out if that is where you're coming from her. Yes, it's Marvel, it's great, it's fantastic to watch as entertainment, but they were really, really wrong. They were super, super wrong. So please preface, like, pull that out of there. Okay, so we're gonna get going with Lady Hel. Some people do actually prefer to refer to her as Lady Hel. I switch in between. A lot of times you actually will hear me refer to her as Lady Hel specifically. Some of her epithets though are going to be Hel, goddess of the dead. She's also the daughter of Loki. You will hear her also referenced as Hela. Sometimes it's spelled two different ways. You'll see Hela with the two L's and the A, and then you'll see Hela with just one L and an A. It kind of is interchangeable. Most commonly, though, you'll see Hel, Hel. So again, this is different from Hell, the Christianity place of damnation and torture and all of that. This is a deity in the Norse pantheon. This is where this is going to come from. She is super big. She's super complex. She's a lot to worth hearing from. She's tied to a couple, actually all realms. When I get into the power that Odin gave her, there's a couple different scholars, and also myself. I subscribe to the fact that Lady Hel is actually more powerful than Odin. If you really look at the power that she has versus him, and what she can do versus what he can do, and how much he fears her, which we're going to get into that as well, which also I think is super unfair, and we're going to talk about that too. But so she's considered the goddess of death. She's the eldest daughter of the trickster god Loki and a giant named I'm going to butcher the name, so please be patient with me. The Angrboda. She actually is crazy to work with as well. By the way, great to work with. She also, so like I said, oldest daughter. She's the sister of Fenrir. And then I'm going to pronounce the name, butcher the name. I'm not even going to try. I've never been able to pronounce it, but the world serpent, the serpent who holds the world as well. Loki's child as well. Those three are his children. So those are her siblings. She is seen by many people as being indifferent when it comes to the concerns of the living and the dead. I actually disagree with this. When we talk about her myth, I'm gonna tell you why. I don't think she's indifferent at all. And I don't think she's callous. I don't think she's greedy. I don't think she's harsh. But she is painted that way. There is actually in the Eddas, she can be painted that way when you read through it. But I view it a little bit differently, and I'm going to talk about that when we break down the myth. She is said to be the one who judges all souls that pass through Helheim, which is the kingdom of Hell. We're going to break down that realm as well, because that can also be known as a couple different names. There's a couple of different theories of where her realm actually is and where it's actually located as well. But Helheim is the most common one. You'll also see people reference that it's within Niflheim as well. Those are the two big distinctions. But Helheim is actually the name of her realm. Sometimes people also call the realm Hell itself with just the one L. But typically it's Helheim that you'll see it's referenced to. And that's where she dwells. Most scholars agree with the fact that she actually can't leave, that she doesn't have the ability to leave. There are a couple stories to where some of the some of the Norse people would tell stories that they actually, after like famine and pestilence and disease, they would tell stories of her actually coming up and literally like raking the dead to bring them down. Because the dead that go to her are all the dead that do not have a honorable death. So that actually encompasses a lot of things when you break it down. She can have some criminals there. She has those that die of just natural causes. She has those that die of sickness, anything that's not considered honorable, and that's also not a water death. Water deaths also specifically go to Rand. That's something different. But so anybody who's not an honorable death, that's typically who ends up in her realm. So that's where she's seen. The realm itself, we're going to talk about a little bit more. It's not actually considered hot and fiery. It's actually cold and misty and damp, and it's a very mundane. There's one version of it, which I'm going to talk about too, which actually was written about 1,000 years after culture because, Christianity. I'm gonna go into really detail later, but to where they do portray it as a place that's very torturous, more like a Dante's Inferno. But when you actually look at more of the original like stories and things that you hear, it's not that way. It's actually very mundane. It's very like you can go about your everyday activities when you're there. You're pretty much meant to just transition there and continue living your life as you normally would. So there's two different views. The more torturous one happens after Christianity. That's where you get that view. And again, we're going to go over that a little bit more. Okay, so that's a little bit of a brief overview with her. Before I jump into kind of discussing now Hel versus Helheim and Hell versus Helheim. Do you guys have any questions on the overview quickly? I didn't think so. This is a smaller class today. That's okay. I like smaller classes. Okay, so let's address the confusion between Helheim, Hel, and Hel. So, Hell, the Christian torturous place of hell with eternal damnation, which is Satan's realm, which actually, by the way, hell is actually never in the Bible. Usually it's referenced as Beelzebub. It's actually literally not a word in the Bible. Not in the Old Testament. But so that's another spin-off I can go on as well. But this place that they have created, this torturous place, this concept, which a lot of scholars agree with, I subscribe to it as well. I wholeheartedly believe that this came from the concept of hell. I believe that they created this from the concept of hell. I believe that she was so powerful because she created this, what she represented and how she is so liminal. I'm going to touch on her appearance a lot more in detail later, but she's split down the middle, half and half. Half of her is literally the undead, a zombie. The other half is this gorgeous, like beautiful living woman. She's very liminal. She's very duality. She's very balanced, and she just is. Like she just is existence. She just is the liminal thing, the cycle of life and death. Like I'm gonna go way more detail in her mythology or story how she ends up there. But she just is, and she's very very powerful. And what she gives you to, and the power that even like Odin fears her, and because of how she was feared, I feel like Christianity, they really, really needed to tear her down more than they needed to do other goddesses, more than they needed to go after Lilith, more than they needed to go after the Morgan. I feel like Hel was just, she was so feared that's why they literally took her. And they took her name and turned it into this incredibly torturous place. It was a very easy way also to try to convert. It was a very easy way to try to convert pagans that were refusing to convert. It took away their culture. It took away so much magic. It took away so much power from them by doing that. And then it's semantics wise, it was easier. It made more sense. It's just, again, they're two completely different concepts. They're two completely different places. Like her version of hell, it's not this fiery torturous thing. It doesn't happen until, again, it appears that way in the Eddas because that is written 1,000 years later. It's written by, and again, also Saint Bartholomew writes kind of a little bit about it. That's a Christian view. So it's very very skewed by Christianity, and I want to preface that. I hope I'm driving it home because the ancient version of hell and Helheim and what a lot of people are calling to, it's different. It's a Christian version. It's not this dark fiery underworld. Hel ruled over the realm of Niflheim. In some stories, it is said that is literally Helheim resides within Niflheim. Some Helheim is a completely separate one. If you want really detailed on the world tree, like Alex has some really great study guides on the website about it. I don't want to like spin down that road. That's a whole other class on its own. She's also teaching a ruins class that she's going over all of that too, and it's really really great and fabulous. But it's said to be, there's two differences. Like I said, some people think that Helheim is actually a realm itself. It's referred to as hell. Others believe that Helheim is a space within Niflheim. And then I've also come across sources where Niflheim and Helheim are literally just the same. It's just different names. But like I said before, it's a place where in the Norse that did not die on battlefield, did not die in glory, did not have a glorious death, that weren't being taken to Valhalla or to the Hall of Frigg. or if they died a watery death, they went with Ran. If they didn't go to those three places, they would end up with Hel. So that's actually a lot of people. Like if you think about it, that's a vast majority of people in the population. They would find themselves in Helheim and they would be underneath the jurisdiction of the goddess of the underworld. And then she would decide their fate. And again, it really wasn't considered a wicked or cruel place until the 13th century when an Icelandic historian, Snorri Sturluson, described the realm as the goddess of death in terms that resembles the Christian ideas of hell now. So he described it as the halls of the goddess where she would eat. Death was a dish that she would eat. Hunger, the knife was called famine. It would suggest that there was no amount of food would ever fill your stomachs with down there. You would always feel like you were starving. You will always feel like you had empty stomachs. There was also a place that he referred to as called the sick bed, which was suggesting that like no amount of sleep that you could get would ever be able to make you feel, like you got enough sleep. You would always feel weary. You would always feel tiresome. There were a couple other places that he described as well within there. There was also like a straw bed as well, which actually is a sick bed. Those are the same two names. But earlier sources actually describe it as being located underneath one of the three roots of the Yggdrasil world tree. And actually, the other two were the one that read to the world of the giants, and the other one read to the world of Midgard, which is the world of men. So those, again, so prior to that, it was actually seen as one of the anchors of the world tree. It wasn't seen as this dark, scary, like gruesome, torturous place like the Dante's Inferno version. Which even if you think about it, in Dante's Inferno, you see that fiery place, and you also see a cold level too. The goddess, so the land of Hel, the location of Hel is to the north. It's reached by a road that's led downward across a bridge over a river of spears or knives. I've seen both words used. I've seen spears and knives used. But both, every time that I've seen the description, like it's a very, very like aggressive, like loud, abrupt, like very treacherous, dangerous, like the clashing that you hear of the swords and the spears all the time. Like it's very, very loud. It's very overpowering, this river. Like it's very, very fearsome. And then you go through a gate to a tall fence that is guarded by the wolf Garm, and you end up going in through, and you go through that to the realm of Hel. Most, like I said, died of old age, sickness. The warriors went to Valhalla. The drowned ones went to Ran, which I said before, which is the wife of the sea god. And then other common folk or the field of the people would end up going to Freya. Once the dead actually arrived to the world of Hel or Helheim or Niflheim, all different names I've seen, I've read, and I've heard it used for, they could never leave. The only one that could give permission to actually allow them to leave was Hel. Odin couldn't even do that. Odin would have to go down and actually ask for her permission. Odin would have to try to talk to her, would try to have to make a deal with her, or any of the other gods. She is actually the only one that can grant permission for anybody to leave that realm. I think this is actually very unique to her. Like I said, I study across many different cultures and pantheons. I don't think I know of any other deity that is a goddess that runs the afterlife, not the underworld, because the underworld and afterlife are different, that runs the afterlife solo and has that much power with the afterlife. I think she's the only one, which I think is super, super unique to her. I think this is part of the reason why Odin fears her. More has to do with her mythology and the prophecy, which I'm going to talk about, I think, next a little bit. Yeah, I'll talk about that probably a little bit here. But the other thing is the fact that she can control life and death. She actually can bring people, she can decide if people can come back to the dead. One of the only two stories that we really have where she's mentioned actually has to do with that and has to do with the story of the god Balder. And I'm gonna break that down for you. I'm gonna run that down for you in just a little bit here too. And like they had to go down and ask for permission. Some people think that she was actually greedy with that, and I disagree. That's where I don't see her as greedy at all. And like I said, I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But that is what Hel is. It's seen as a cold, shadowy, damp, dark place. Helheim, the realm, Niflheim. That's what it's seen. It is one of several. So like the key points with it to remember, it's one of several Norse realms for the dead. So remember, like the Norse have a very different view of life and death, and it's very transitional, and it's very complicated. It's not actually that simple. Myths described actually perilous journeys, super perilous journeys to get there. Within its halls, it was said that they were thought to continue their daily earthly activities. No one, not even the gods, could even escape it. And like I said, it's even said that hell can't even leave. And Helheim or Niflheim or hell is not a place considered a punishment like hell. It's really considered more of like a mundane life. Even the criminals, I don't get the impression that it's punishment there. In the study guide, I do have a couple articles. Actually, no, did I leave one? I left one in here, actually. It's actually super great, super detailed article that breaks down like all the levels. I'm sorry, that breaks down the world tree. It breaks down the afterlife. It breaks down the realms of hell. It breaks down like super detailed like history and mythology of like how it changed and everything. I highly recommend reading it. It's super great. When I find a really great source, I like to make sure that you guys get access to that. So take a look at that. So before I head into her mythology, and more the stories of who she is, why Odin's afraid of her, the stories that she's in with Baldur and things like that, I'll jump back to the chat and see if you guys have any questions. Your study guide has a beautiful example of her portrait, a bit nicer. Yes, I found that one. I was really excited. I found that. It's actually really hard to find like a lot of information about her and a lot of good images for her. It's really difficult. Like it's incredibly difficult. Even when I'm like looking at like my completed series, because I have like 10 different like completed series when it comes to like all of the Norse pantheon in one. Everybody's got this big chunk and she's got like this. She's got like nothing. It makes me so sad. Um, okay, so let's see here. Yeah, I don't see any questions. So I will jump back into my study guide. If I'm talking too fast at all, too, just let me know because I am known to do that. So just let me know and I can slow down. Okay, so Hel, the goddess of Norse mythology. So like I said, death is actually seen something that's very natural, it's very transitional, it's not a very scary thing, it's a supernatural cycle of life for them. And Hel is considered responsible for receiving and judging the spirits who have not perished in battle. According to their deeds in life, she guides them to the 9 levels of Helheim, if you believe in that. Like I said, there's a couple different versions of that. So if you believe in that, that is what she's doing. Otherwise, she is there receiving them and they go about their daily lives. I have worked with her in a way of judgment, though. I do call on her to judge me. I put that ritual actually towards the back of the study guide for you guys to use. Is I call on her to be judgment for me, to let me know like where I need to start internally looking at myself. I don't like calling her for judgment for like other people. So again, you can work on her in that way, but again, that's not the myth that I typically subscribe to. The name of the goddess Hel actually means hidden in Old Norse, and that refers to her appearance. She is described always. I can't find her anywhere not described this way, except for I think the horns came in after Marvel. I think the horns came in after Marvel. Prior to Marvel, I don't think I see her in any of the depictions with horns. That's the one difference I will say. But I see her everywhere described this way as having half a body of an incredibly beautiful woman with long hair. Typically, sometimes, usually it's almost always her depictions are black and white. Usually they have it half black, half white. So usually I see that usually typically more in the black half of her. Um, and the other half is being a skeleton. It's being skeleton, it's being a zombie like, it's being undead. She literally is representing the transition of life. She's literally representing the cycle of life in her appearance, completely split down the middle. Like it is completely balanced, completely split down the middle. She's described as being half alive and half dead. And due to her appearance, a lot of the gods felt really uncomfortable with her. They felt really uncomfortable being around her. A lot of people actually choose not to work with her because of that. They fear her because of that. Part of the way that you'll know that she's calling to her is because of this as well. If she's calling to you, one of her tests is if you will accept her image. When she presents herself to you, if you will actually accept her image and who she is. without any disgust, without any judgment or disdain. So her appearance plays a big part in actually who she is. It makes the gods feel really, really uncomfortable about her because of this. And then a prophecy, which I'm going to discuss as well. She gets cast down to hell. Odin actually casts her there. She doesn't like end up there willingly. Like she's literally cast there simply because I think for three reasons. One, simply because of her parentage, because of who her parents were. Her parents were the trickster god Loki and the witch-giantess Angrboda. So I think simply because of that, that's one reason why she was cast out. Her brothers were as well. I mean, look what he did to Fenrir. He literally just Odin took him and chained him up and left him there. And then the snake literally was thrown into the rivers and writhing in pain, where he grew so enormous that he can circle entire the world. So it's, I mean, yes, but because of her parentage, also there is a prophecy that has to do with her and her siblings and Loki and Ragnarok. I actually broke it down in pretty good detail in the back of this in the study guide. I don't know if I'm really gonna go over it that much. I'm gonna go over like Hel's role with it in a little bit later. Actually, probably now. I'll just do it now. I'll go over Hel's role. But if you want like the full like story, you can read it. Otherwise, there are lots of sources to be able to read it too. Um, but Hel's role in it is simply that like she will be there because she's the keeper of Hell. She will end up unleashing the undead, and they will be part. They will be fighting with Loki and simply it's just simply her being there. There is theory that there's another prophet. Like the theory is actually that the prophecy is much more detailed than what her role would be, but we just don't know. It's lost. We just don't know. The prophecy is so bits and pieces, and it's so much of it is missing that we actually just we don't know the full story. We don't know the full prophecy. We don't know like her full role and impact, what it could possibly be. But based on what we do know, what we have seen, it's simply she's just going to be there, and it's simply because she is the keeper of the realms, and the keeper of Helheim and Hel and Niflheim and the dead, that because she's the one that grants Loki access to that's enough to fear her. So again, there's the prophecy part that we may not know. There's a little bit that we do know about her role in Ragnarok, that she's supposed to be as Loki. There's a part of who her parentage is, which I think is a big deal why she's thrown out. I think and there's something in that prophecy because Odin is he's the All-Father. I think there's just something in there that we're really missing. I think there's just got to be some crucial. I really wholeheartedly believe this. Not all scholars do, not all practitioners do, but I really wholeheartedly believe that there's just something missing. Because not only does he cast her out, and she's done absolutely nothing. She's literally done nothing to like warrant this at this point. Actually, never. She does nothing ever to warrant this. But then he gives her so much power because when he casts her out, he gives her power over all the nine realms, and then power over Helheim, and power over the dead. She has the power to bring the dead back. Like he gives her so much power, and I don't know if it's that he actually gave it to her, if he had no choice but to allow her to have that. Like I don't know if he just didn't have the power to take it from her, and so he's like, I'm just going to try to contain her. And so that's what he chose to do, is try to contain her. And that's what he did with her. Again, this is also kind of a little bit more of my own personal view and from what I've learned and other people's. From what I remember from the Eddas, Loki and Odin are not that. No, they're not. They're not. I think another part of it too is when we get to Boulder, Loki gets pretty jealous with Boulder too. And Loki just gets jealous with a lot of his siblings. And yeah, it's yeah. Okay, so that's I think those are the reasons why I think there's multiple different reasons, layered, I feel like, but the big one I think is the prophecy. The other one's her parentage. I think she's really getting punished for her parentage. I think that's a big thing. But so in order to contain the problem, in order for the other Aesir gods would stop complaining, as well, not feel so uncomfortable, he did cast her out, sent her to Hell, sent her to Niflheim, one of the Norse lands, the dead, and she had he gave her all that responsibility. And then like I had touched on before, Fenrir got tied, got chained down, and then the world serpent, like the small serpent, he got thrown into the waters surrounding Midgard, actually writhing in pain while doing so, and he grew to such a great size that he could actually encircle the world. Um, And so that is how they chose to actually contain them. So Hel, actually in the Eddas, which is one of the prose Eddas, some people consider it like an entire Norse text. Some people consider it just like a poem. It depends on the scholar and who you get it from. But it was actually a text that was written and compiled by an Icelandic historian, Snorri Sturluson. I touched on it a little bit before. And in there, it's told it tells a lot of the Norse mythologies. It tells a lot of the stories, the bits and pieces that that we have access to anyways, and what was written down. Because again, this was at least 1,000 years after the fact. So at least 1,000 years after when we would have liked them to start writing it down, I should say, when would have liked to have written record for all these stories, to where we wouldn't have lost so much, and with what was going on culturally and what was going on in the world and all of that. But in there, when it comes specifically to Hel, that's where they talk about how the gods were afraid of the evil that could come of Loki's children. That's where it's described of, Hel getting sent to the underworld. Other than that, like, we don't have really a lot of myths. But this is where we find the story of her role when it comes to the god Balder. So it's one of the few surviving legends that we actually have a role to where Hel actually plays a major role. Another one, actually, it's a very small snippet. It has to do with her and a Danish king, and she actually was so lonely because obviously she couldn't leave and she was forced down there, which we just talked about, that she was watching this Danish king for a while, and she became really infatuated with him. And because she was so lonely, she wanted a husband and she wanted a consort and she wanted a partner and somebody to be with. So she actually found a way to make him die naturally so he could end up in her realm and she could end up with a husband. But outside of that, the only really other surviving legend that we really have is actually her role with the death of Balder. Um, so the Balder was the Norse god of light. He was the son of the goddess Frigg, and Odin. And the legend says that Loki, which is Hel's father, actually tricked the blind god Hodor, Balder's brother, to actually kill him by throwing an arrow or a spear. In some versions, it's different because Balder was actually invincible. It was said that he was not supposed to be able to die. He was not supposed to be able to hurt. So prior to this, they would literally go around and they would literally just mess with him and sometimes just like throw fireballs at him and throw spears at him and shoot arrows at him just because like he can't die and why not. He's invincible. Like, everybody loved Balder. He was actually considered the favorite god above Thor. Like, most people actually think it was Thor, but it actually wasn't. It was Balder. He was considered to be like just incredibly beautiful, like everything. So like that's like Loki. And I'm not going to go into super detail on what he does, but if you want to, you can look at the story in a lot of the sources, the books, you can read it as well. But he actually tricks, like I said, he tricks the blind god Holder into actually like throwing a spear or an arrow, a couple different ones. That actually has mistletoe attached to it, which, long story of why that's Balder's weakness, has to do with Frigg. And if you want to know more about that, you can look into that story with Frigg. But it has mistletoe attached to it, which actually is his only weakness. Long story of why that is, and it actually ends up killing him, which makes his spirit go to Helheim. Um, Hermdor, which is the messenger of the gods, actually volunteered to go and talk to Hel in the underworld because nobody was going to volunteer and go do it because everybody was so upset. Everybody was so strong. Like, Frigg was like beyond herself, that Balder was there. So Odin actually lent him his eight-legged horse, Sleipnir, and the god actually rode towards the gate of Helheim. When he met with Hel and he got there, the journey, there's a lot with the journey. I'm paraphrasing it, but there's a lot of details of the story of how perilous it is and everything that entailed with it. But when he got there, he begged Hel for Balder's life. Now, this is where some people say that she was greedy and she was callous and she's impartial to human life and she doesn't really care and she just is there and that's what it is. This is where I disagree with them because of what she does in this story and the deal that she makes. So she actually offers a deal with them. And she says, if you can get all of the living creatures on Earth to mourn his death and lament his death, and to be sad for his death and to cry for his death, I will let him come back. If you can do that, I will let him come back. So again, I may be pronouncing it wrong because remember, I do everything, most of my study is through reading. But Hermdor, the messenger of the gods, was super, super cocky. And he's like, there's no way, like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Yep, I agree to this. Like, everybody loves Baldur. We're good. Like, I'm going to get everybody to be able to cry, mourn, lament for him, all of that. So he agrees to it. This is why I think that she's actually not callous, because she actually gives them an opportunity. She gives them a chance. Some people and some scholars say that she said that sarcastically in a side comment, knowing that there's no way it was possible for them to be able to do it. So she gave them this impossible goal, this impossible task to complete. Others view it like I do, to where it's like, no, this is actually like giving you an away. This is being kind. This is trying to compromise. This is finding balance. This is me trying to like reach out a hand. And so like I personally choose to see it that way. But again, there's different perspectives with it with this story. But again, they agree. They think that there's no way possible. We're gonna be able to get him to be able to like everybody's gonna warn him. Everybody does, except for there's two different versions I see. One says it's a giantess. Another one says it's a troll. It's like hiding back in a cave that like they almost miss and can't find. Um, that absolutely refuses to cry for Boulder. That absolutely refuses to cry. Absolutely refuses to mourn. Absolutely refuses to lament. Most people actually suspect that this either troll or giantess that was actually named Thok, Thokk, was actually Loki. Loki was actually disguised and was the one sitting there not lamenting. There's a whole reason for why Loki wanted him killed. Most people think it's out of jealousy. I kind of subscribe to that. I kind of don't. But because that one creature, that one person, that one entity, the giantess or the troll, whichever one that you choose to follow, did not mourn Baldur's death, did not grieve him, did not lament him, did not cry for him. Hel didn't release him. Hel did not let Baldur leave, and Baldur was forced to stay in her realm for all eternity. And that is written in the Prose Edda. And that is a story that is literally the biggest one that we have of her. That is the biggest role that she plays. Otherwise, the only other places that we see her are the small snippet of her with Ragnarok. And like I said, we don't have a lot with that one. We don't have everything that comes to that. And like what her role will be. Like I said, she doesn't really play a super predominant role in the Ragnarok story. It is said that like she's literally just because she's the keeper of Helheim and Hel, Niflheim, whichever one, and she's the one that's going to be able to open those gates to be able to assemble the army of the dead for the final event. That just because of that role alone is really the only reason why she's kind of seen there. Some people and some scholars actually subscribe that she will play a much bigger role out of vengeance for what was done to her and done to her family, because she had done absolutely nothing wrong to be cast out the way that she was. And then other scholars also believe that she doesn't want vengeance for it because look at the power that she was given. Look at everything that she was given. Look at what she was meant to represent, and look at who she became. So again, there's a couple different viewpoints on that as well. I've seen those two. Okay, so before I dive into what Marvel did, I'll jump back in the chat and we'll see if there's any questions. I see you laughing, Robin. I thought you were supposed to work today, by the way. Did you like suddenly like switch shifts so you could be here?
I work at 4:30 my time, so
Okay.
that's 3:30 Mountain. So
What? You're in Iowa, right? Yeah. So you're my time. So okay. Yeah, you're Central Time, right? Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I thought your class was at 8, so I was like,
No, 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 no. No, no. Those are only my weekday classes. My weekend classes I try to do when my son's napping so he doesn't interrupt us. Okay, I don't see any questions or anything at all. This is a smaller class. That's totally fine. I love it though. I don't see any questions though, which means I must be doing a good job. So I'll jump back into the study guide. So, Hell, Marvel, and Ragnarok. Please, if you saw that movie, yes. Was it a good piece of cinema? Sure. But it really was not very true. They really took a lot of liberties when they're with their portrayal of Hel in there. And the Ragnarok story.
I,
So for instance, they said that Hel was a daughter of Odin. She's not the daughter of Odin, she's a daughter of Loki. Also to suggest that Odin cast Hel out and made her the goddess of the underworld due to her fear and her ambition that she wants to conquer the universe. I've never, ever, ever, ever come across any reading that says that. I've never come across any scholars that say that. I've never ever come across any practitioners that say that. I have never personally gotten that feel or that perspective from her at all. Like at all. Never. 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 Like I said, I gave you the three different reasons of why a lot of different scholars and myself believe she was cast out. Um, she also, in the Marvel universe, they also try to claim that she is the main antagonist for Ragnarok. That's just simply not true. It's just simply not true. Like she literally is in like three sentences, like literally like three sentences in the whole entire thing. Um, she's literally not. She's not the antagonist. She's not the main central role. That's just not who she is. Like that's not it's actually Loki. Like it's literally Loki. Like it's literally Loki. He will be accompanied by her and like the army of the dishonorable dead, but her participation in that is like we actually don't even know like beyond that what her participation of that battle is going to be. We don't know if she's actually going to be there fighting alongside him like as part of the battle. Like we don't know what her role is going to be. We don't know whose side she would take. We actually don't know. We don't have any inclination of that. So to try to suggest that like she is the antagonist is just it's ridiculous. So and again, like I don't normally do that, but like again, it's Marvel, so I don't feel like I'm really offending anybody's path or anything, but that's just please don't take that as your study for her. Just please don't. Please don't. Um in the study guide, I have another chunk here that like really breaks down into detail, like how she looks. So again, I've touched on it before, but it's the half dead, half alive. It's literally half vertically down the middle. The one side is I've seen two different versions. One is a deposing corpse, and one is actually down to a skeleton. So I've seen two different versions. Typically I see her black and white, so a white side and a dark side, a white side and a black side. Other times I'll actually see her completely like a really deathly blue color. I feel like I see her when I see her depicted more like that. It's more of when she's depicted in her realm. And I think that's because you get that mist, that damp, that shadowy feel and aspect to her. And I could totally see that aesthetic coming over her when she's in her realm because of her being that half like dark and half black, that white and that that white and black. So usually when I see her depicted that way, it's typically when she's in her realm. I have never ever seen her not with a sad, forlorn, or serious look on her face. I've never ever seen her with like a smile or like jolly or happy. She is always very, very solemn, very sad, very serious, very, I don't know, resting bitch face, I guess sometimes you could also even say, but like in a good way. Um, in some depictions, you will see horns, like I touched on before. I really think that I didn't really start seeing that. And then when I'm looking through text and looking through resources, even now before class, I don't really think that was a thing until Marvel really did that to her. I really don't think the horns were a thing until Marvel did that. When it comes to like her spiritual powers and attributes, she's the goddess of death, therefore she controls the afterlife. So sometimes there's like I said, sometimes there's views of her being like a grim reaper and the one like coming to like get the souls, but more traditional views, the souls actually have to travel to her through the world tree. She doesn't actually go and reap them. But there are very few instances of stories where there are the Norse people that claim that during pestilence or famine, that is when she would kind of be considered like that. But it's very, very, very few. Um, Most scholars and even myself, I don't I don't really subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to her like a grim reaper type figure to where she goes and like reaps the souls. It's more of like a more similar to kind of like the Hades and Persephone, where she was welcoming them at the end, like at afterlife and at the other world. Like it is said that they actually have to travel to her through the world tree. Like that is how that works. So like as a Grim Reaper, I don't really like see her like that. A lot of people don't as well. But she is connected to death. She's connected to that transformation of life and cycles. She's also great to use for protection, because she's in that liminal space, because she is with that great for ancestral work, super, super great for ancestral work and shadow work and mediumship. Any type of mediumship is fabulous with her, because if you want to use her for mediumship, like she's like, oh yeah, let me connect you. Like she's great for that. Like she's fabulous for that. And because like the vast amount of population that she sees over. Um, Again, we don't know a lot about her personas and myths because we don't get a lot. So I kind of I really kind of went over her persona and how people see her when I went through her myths. Some people see her as very cold and very callous and very just like she just is. Therefore, they consider her cold and callous because she doesn't she doesn't go one way or the other. She just is. She understands the meaning of existence, and she understands the meaning of balance, and she understands the meaning of transformation and death and life and all of that. So, like she just is. Other people, again, they see her as very greedy because of, she wouldn't just give Boulder back. And then there's myself and other scholars that see her as much more of, she dances into two realms because she's so half and half, and she represents those two realms, and she's so liminal, and she's so duality, she's so balanced. Like I see her in both lights, but in that story, like she gave them an option, she gave them an opportunity, she gave them a way out. Like they literally could have showed up, and she could have like slammed the door in their faces and like, no. But like she gave them a chance. And again, some people think that she did it to be snide and sarcastic and because she knew what her father was up to. But I actually don't think they had that close of a relationship. Um, but again, everybody's practice and perspective might be different. So if you do think that, I'm not saying that you're wrong. Everybody's perspective is a little bit different. But I think we don't know much about her persona, but again, I've touched on kind of like the differences with it. I don't think she's quite as harsh and like nasty as the Icelandic, as the Eddas, portray her, and as that 13th century Icelandic, historian portrays her either. Like the post-Christianity version of her, like I just don't really. I always caution you guys, please just like read through between the lines and understand like what Christianity and patriarchy was doing and how they changed that. And when you are reading these, understand that they were written later and we have bits and pieces. So that's why there's different perspectives and why she will call to you and pull to you how she's going to call to you and pull to you. She's in a super privileged position as being a guardian and housekeeper for all spirits who did not die in the battlefield. So again, she's great for practitioners of shamanism as well. Most shamanism work with mediumship in some way. Most shamanic journeys, that's kind of what it is. So it makes perfect sense for it to be there. And astral projection, and connecting through dreams and lucid dreamings as well. She's really, really good with those as well. She can, again, with the dreams, if you've been in my classes before, I can't help you too much with that, but I've heard that she's great and phenomenal with dreams, that she can show up there and give you great messages, and she's really willing to meet you there to judge um, your actions, like, and let you know and judge your intentions and what you're doing. I use that in a meditative state, but most people use that in a dream state, and I've heard it's pretty amazing and how she can connect with you that way. When it comes to correspondences from her, if you haven't been with me before, what a correspondence is it is a symbol, it is a thing, it is an item, it is something tangible to be able to connect you to a deity, to an energy, to a thing. It's a way to represent. Sometimes correspondences are also seen as offerings, but I see it as an energetic connection to another entity, another deity, or another energy, or even a realm or a dimension as well, because I work with the multiverse. So, but correspondences that have to do with her are going to be offerings, bread specifically. She'll like kind of like I've found slightly blackened or burnt bread. I think that goes along like with the mythos that have to do kind of like with peasants and poor, and that's kind of what they would end up with. And a lot of the people that I feel like would end up in her realm, that's a lot of their circumstances. When you think about like dying of natural deaths or mundane death and not dying in like battle, dying of famine, starvation, death, that's pretty common during those times. So I've actually kind of found that to be pretty common with her, that she likes that. Black cloths, wine, black or white candles, skulls or skull symbols, bones, black onyx for crystals or tourmaline, any of your black stones really, but I've really found black onyx and tourmaline really, really connect with her. I really find the energy charging with her throughout that. Some people like to include pictures or items from deceased loved ones and deceased ancestors or their ancestral line. Um, some people like to include that with her. And she's usually celebrated around Samhain. And then she also has Hell's Day, which, what is the day? I can't not remember the day off the top of my head. The day off the top of my head. Did I not put it in the study guide either? Did I forget that? Okay, after class, I'm gonna have to jump that back at you because that date is completely slipping from my head, unless Robin knows it. Do you remember?
I am on the pagan calendar website now,
I think it's
and
in July. I want to say it's in July.
it's July 10th.
Yes.
I just Googled the pagan calendar and it pulled it up for me.
Yes. Awesome. See? Haha, I knew it. Okay. Yes. So that is another day that's super associated with her where you can honor her and tie to her as well. Um, She actually has a rune that's attached to her as well, which is, I'm gonna butcher it, but the Hegelas rune. I actually am just starting to learn how to read runes, so I'm not the one to ask on that. I have been studying Norse mythology and pantheon for an incredibly long time, but I never dived down the road of learning runes. I'm just starting to do that with Alex. So I am not an expert on that. If you have questions on that, please ask her. Colors that associate with her are gonna be black and white. Um, and animals are going to be a black mare, also wolves, because of the gate that's at Helheim, and then because of Fenrir. I also have used snakes as well because of her other brother. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. I'm never going to be able to do it, so I'm just not. um, but the serpent, the world serpent. So I've also used snakes as well for animals with her as well. Places that you can try to associate with her is actually Mount Hekla, which is an active volcano in southern Iceland, which is actually allegedly the people there think is among one of the alleged entrances to her realm. Other animals that you can use are also going to be packs of dogs, because hounds. So how to know if she's calling to you? You will see or hear her name often on a TV, radio, online, or books, or just in your life. If you had a family member recently pass away, it's very likely that she's most likely calling to you, especially if you have Scandinavian and Germanic roots. This is the Norse pantheon is one of the first that I actually looked into for that reason. I'm from central Minnesota, so it's how how Scandinavian my ancestry is ridiculous. And so I don't actually know if I have Norse roots because but it's how Scandinavian I am as a whole. Like it's just assumed at this point. But if you've had a family pass away, like especially like I said, if that's part of your heritage, she'll definitely pull to you. If you're currently working on healing from any type of religious traumas, specifically that have to do with the concept of death and hell. So if you're coming from Christianity into the pagan path, into a spirituality path, and you still are very stuck on fearing death, not welcoming death, not welcoming that transformation, if you still are viewing death as an ending point, if you still are viewing death as an ending goal, if you still are viewing death as some type of possible internal punishment, she is amazing to help you work through that. She's amazing to help you understand how truly, absolutely beautiful death is, how transformative it is, how you will go through death multiple times in one lifetime. She will help release those fears, and she will help get rid of that connotation where death is just possibly this fiery internal existence of misery. I can say that this is one of the first reasons why I started working with her. because I've had a lot of death in my life, a shit ton more than I should have dealt with by this age of 30. 30, sorry, I'm 31 now. By the age of 31. And so that's a big reason why I started dealing with her, is actually to help with that. That's a big reason why I still deal with her. And I'm not gonna lie, like the freedom that she gives with you, that is absolutely amazing. I have zero fears with death. I don't deal with death the way other people do. I don't acknowledge, like it's I have none. Like I absolutely wholeheartedly welcome it. If you've been to my classes, you've heard me talk about death in such a passionate and beautiful way all the time. It is an amazing, and she can really help release that fear for you. It's something that she can really, really do for you. Um, so if you're currently working on that, and again, we're releasing religious trauma too, she really helps with that. I think a big reason of that is specifically what was done to her people, and the Norse people as well. So I think that's a big part of it. If the death card continuously keeps popping up in tarot readings, she's probably reaching out to you. Take a look at that. And again, don't fear the death card. The death card is a great card. If the rune key, if her rune, I'm not gonna try to pronounce again because I'm gonna get it wrong, is calling to you and showing up everywhere, that's another great sign. If her animals, dogs, wolf, horse are coming up to you. And then I personally did experience this, and this is how this experience went with me. Almost everybody that I have spoken to has experienced it this way. Doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to experience this way. And there's lots of reports across a lot of different places that say this as well. Um, she will actually appear to you in a dream, in a vision, or during meditation, and she will extend her skeleton, specifically her skeleton, or like her decomposing hand to you, to be kissed as a greeting. And it is a test to judge if you are worthy of her assistance, because you are going to be willing to accept all of her deformities and to accept who she is wholeheartedly, 100%, without judgment and without resistance. If you show judgment, if you refuse that hand, if you show any type of fear, it is said that she will turn around, she will leave, and you will have to wait until she's willing to try to reach out again. This is exactly how I met her. Through meditation. Again, I don't use dreams, but this is how I met her, is through meditative states. When I was calling to her one of the first times, and this is how I met her. She outstretched her hand to me. She extended it to me for me to kiss, to greet. I also even bent down and went to her feet on that side as well, because I wanted to make sure she knew wholeheartedly that I did not have any judgment with her and with her appearance and with who she was. I did not fear her, and I wasn't going to stick to any type of stereotypes. So that's why I kind of touched earlier on how important her appearance is, and like understanding that like it plays a key role of who she is. Like she will present herself to you. Robin, I'm kind of curious if she did that with you, because I know you said you worked with her.
So I put it in chat like maybe like 5 to 10 minutes ago, but I don't know if it was specifically her that was in my dreams, but I was having some sort of weird lucid dream about, I'm not gonna get into it. But she was in this guide, because I'm certain it was a guide, was in a forest covered completely in black, like head to toe, hood over their face, and like dressed as death, but instead of holding death's scythe, they were holding a book.
Okay.
And that was it. That's all I could see of the person. At first I thought it was, I was Apollo's son Hymenos.
That's actually.
Because he is a god of wedding sonnets, and it was like almost like a wedding setup. So I thought it was him. So I've got an altar to him. But listening to how you've been talking about like how Hel reaches out, I realized it also could have been Hel. But so I've got an altar to both in my room.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. Okay. So let's see. So again, when she calls to you, it might seem alarming at first because of the connotation of stigmas that's around her. It doesn't mean that you're about to die. She's not a banshee. I don't equate her to that. I haven't found any literature that equates her to that either. I haven't seen that. Like I said, I don't see her in a Grim Reaper type fashion either. I haven't come across her in literature like portrayed like that either. So I don't see it as like a you know you're about to die. Like I don't see her as like a banshee, like actual like physical death. A lot of times it's actually more of a spiritual death, more of like the death card. And that's a lot of times what's going to happen when you work with her, when she's calling to you, and that's excuse me, that's going to be what you experience. It's more of like a spiritual metaphorical sense. It's more of an awakening. If you've been to any of my classes, I've talked about this so much, about how in order to evolve, in order to grow, in order to change, in order to awaken any of that, a death has to happen first for there to be something to be born. A death just it has to happen first in that cycle. You have to experience that death. You have to experience your world falling apart. You have to experience that change, that growth. You have to experience that in order to get to the other side. A lot of times when she is representing and when she pulls up for me versus other deities, I've noticed personally myself and from other practitioners as well that they've told me when she pops up, it's going to be a very abrupt change. Like it's going to be incredibly abrupt what's coming for you, or it's that you need to make an abrupt change and you have been refusing to do so. And so she's literally telling you, like, you cannot fear this change anymore. Stop fearing this. It's going to create a better life for yourself, your community, and those around you. This transformation has to happen, and it's going to be abrupt, and it's going to happen now. Um, a lot of people also again like work with her to understand like death in the afterlife, and like that's how she's going to show up too, is like if you're really struggling with that, like you're really struggling with that concept and you're still really fearing that, she's going to come to you, and it's she's that's really what she's going to pull out. She's going to tug at that fear and she's going to pull it out of you, and she's going to try to figure out why are you feeling this way and why do you have this blockage up that's not allowing you to understand this natural cycle of transformation that every single soul is going to go through. And with her being around, it sometimes can be disruptive for people, when she starts calling to you personally. Sometimes it's triggered some of my PTSD for myself, because like she will bring up like death or trauma that I've been through because it's something that I need to process. So I need to make sure that like I'm grounded and I'm ready and I'm stable and I am not like chaotic in order to work with her. So again, that's why sometimes people can fear her and it can seem like a lot and they push back because she will bring up that stuff. Like she will really pull that up because she really is the afterlife. Like she really is the essence of that afterlife, more so than I feel like any of the other dark goddesses that I've talked before, more than the other ones. Like she really is the afterlife. A lot of doulas and midwives work with her too, because she holds that liminal space. A lot of people don't think about it, but like birthing is a very liminal space. Like that's a very life and death space. um I think people forget how many mothers and children die during childbirth. So many people don't realize that the idea of understanding that while you are going through a pregnancy and going through a delivery and that child, like you are hand in hand with death that entire time. And for some more than others, I mean, I was literally dying the entire time I was pregnant, the whole 9 months, and I almost died multiple times delivering my son. But like that is part of that. So midwives love to use her, doulas love to use her. Like she's great to be in that. And that I think is also why some people kind of bucket her and are afraid of her, because that's a very powerful thing. It's a very powerful thing to remind you of. Most people like pregnancy and all of that, fertility, like it's great, happy time. Like it is, but you also hand in hand with death at the same time. Like you are also hand in hand with death that whole time. Um, so it's a very liminal space. Symbols that you can use with her, that will help represent her as well. I've kind of touched on some correspondences before, but a broom is actually one of her tools, that I found attached to her. I thought this was really interesting. I actually learned this recently in the last couple months. when I was looking through and double checking my info on protection tools. But a brew was actually used with her as a protection tool. And it's actually said that this is where I found those stories of her actually like raking or sweeping away the souls of the dead of like entire villages after like famine or pestilence or like any type of like mass event comes through. And that she would actually like sweep the souls. So a broom is actually said to be attached to her, and you can place it by your entryway, and it will help make it to where the souls that are welcome to you can come in and out, and then you can use it as a tool to sweep them out. That's actually something new that I found recently, so I was actually really excited to learn that as a symbol that you can use with her. So other ways to work with her, I've kind of touched on some of them. I touch on these in almost every single class, but I'm going to go through them again here for you guys. Study, 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 study. Study the deity. Even if you watch this class for me, I'm pretty detailed. I go over a lot of, like, I'm pretty detailed. I go through a lot of different perspectives. I still would never consider watching just my class enough to be able to go and try to channel or vessel or anything with these deities. You need to study these deities. You need to look at them from their historical context. You need to look at them from their cultural references. You need to look at them from like how to work with them. Just study them all the different ways that you can. There's not a lot of myths and lores, but look at the Eddas, look at the sagas, look at understanding the Norse ancestors' belief system for the Norse ancestries. Look at the Norse belief system for the afterlife. Look at the Norse structure for the world tree, and the world tree, and look at all of that because that ties into who she is. Look at Loki. Look at the history of Loki. Look at the history of her mother. When you do this, you study, you take your notes, and then record anything that happens in your life around you. Anything that's different. If you have any dreams, if you have any meditations, visions, signs, symbols, anything like that, because it's gonna let you know, if she's calling to you, why she's calling to you, how she is, all of that. You can create a sacred space for her. You can carve out a section for her on an ancestral altar. You can also have her on her own altar. I would recommend not having her on an altar with Odin or most of the Aesir. I would recommend not doing that. You can, it's your practice and everything is your way, but I just recommend not doing that because of the myth and because of what's happened between those. But I have placed her with Loki and it's been amazing. I've placed her with Scotty and it's been amazing. I placed her with her mother as well. I've placed her with her siblings. I've also used her with the triple goddesses as well, alongside Frigg and Freya. So she can also be used that way as well. So you can create her in a sacred space that way. Offerings that can be provided to her. Great way to connect to her. Great way to work with her. Wine, tea, beer, mead, water, any type of ancestral meals. So if you give on any of the feast days, like elf, I'm gonna please just read them in the study guide. I cannot pronounce them, so please just read them in the study guide. You can also use incense, dried flowers, and any artwork that has to do with her. You can also use the rune that's attached to her and any of her sigils and symbols. And then also ways that you can provide offerings to her are simply doing acts of service that have to do in the realm of passage. So whether that's being a volunteer at the hospital in the maternity ward, whether it is working as a CNA, whether it's volunteering in a nursing home, whether it's going to the hospice wing, anything like that, providing some type of care of relief as a caregiver to a dying family member, even if it's just for a few hours. It doesn't have to be a super, super extended thing. I will say, when my stepfather was dying of cancer, I called to her a lot. And I was a main caretaker for him for the first 6 months that he was going through that. And while my mom was still working, and I was very close to her during that time because of that act of service that was being provided, and that relief that was being provided. So if that is a part of your life, calling to her can give you great solace. She's great to work with in that aspect. You can also explore your beliefs around death and the afterlife. That's a great way to connect to her and work with her. There's lots of different beliefs and views on the afterlife. My personal view pulls from a lot of different places. My answer on the afterlife, and it keeps shifting even. And I say that there are a lot of different things that are right, answers that are right with the afterlife and death. But look at it. You can always constantly keep looking at that and looking at how you feel about that, and work on any fears or confusion that you have with that. Sometimes, like I said, she can be pretty abrasive with this topic. She can really smack you upside the head and really like push those fears in your face and really make you understand like this is absolutely nothing to fear about. Ancestral work, which I touched on before, is great to work with her. Any type of mediumship as well, which a lot of ancestral work, most mediumship work is ancestral work, if you really think about it. If you've never worked with your ancestors before, Hell is a great way to do that. I don't have a strong tie to my ancestral connection. It's not something I work with that much. I understand the honor of it, and I still like pull to it, but it's not a super strong tie that I have. But I have used her to get me the connection that I do have so that I can do past life regression, because I work a lot on past life regression. And in order to have that connection, I think she actually really helps with that a lot too. Um, Study and work with her different symbols, work with her different runes, work with, you can draw them, you can have them in your life, anything like that. You can have them in your candles, you can use them as symbols when you're consecrating your altar, anything like that. Um, okay. I'm gonna jump in the chat just to see if there's any questions. It is so hard to say. I swear I've heard these words a million times. I've read them a million times. I've read the pronunciations a million times. I'm never gonna be able to do it. Sometimes I even don't even get Odin right because I forget to like do the Odin. Like I forget like see yep, I hate Norse. You're right, Robin. I didn't. Okay, I shouldn't say I hate it. It's just really hard to pronounce. Okay, so back to the study guide. I do have some prayers in there for you. Only a couple because honestly, with her, it's very personal. I I have found working with her is incredibly personal. Doing invocations or prayers that are pre-written or invocations or prayers that are pre I personally, from a lot of people I've talked to, the practitioners that have taught me how to work with her, how I have personally worked with her, she doesn't seem to connect with them very much. Um, it seems to be a lot more when it's something that's coming from you, and when it's something that's more written to you. So I do, like I said, I have a couple in the study guide for you to look at. I wrote out a summoning ritual for you to use. You can use this while you're sleeping, or you can use this during a meditative state. Um, and do it during the new moon specifically. Um, very few things are needed for it. You just need a clove or rosemary incense. You just need a very cold glass of water and then a notebook or a pen. There is it's like I said, just read through it if you would like to do it. It's super easy to do. Like I said, I don't work with dreams because I literally don't have access to them. I haven't my entire life. I don't know why. I've done a lot of research. I don't know why. But I've done this with it being in a meditative state. I've also done this while astral projecting and being in my own sacred temple with her as well. So you can do it that way as well. It's a great way to summon her. You get to bring her to her to have her judge you and look at your actions, look at your intentions. And to kind of like teeter you back into balance if you need to. There's been a couple times where she's shown up and she's really like thrown it in my face to kind of tap down my ego. And then also to remind me that if I'm sitting here thinking that other people are very often, if I'm thinking other people are often being judgmental, that's actually me being judgmental. Because thinking somebody else is judgmental is being judgmental. So a lot of times she's actually put me in check on that too. She's great with like I said, she's great with the judging and making sure to let you know like what your intentions and how your actions are. I've also have a prayer in her offering to actually offer her your grief as an offering, and a prayer to her. This is a big way that I've worked with her is through grief. Outside of understanding death and transformation and all of that, but through grief, because of her role, because of who she is, because of her being so liminal compared to other dark goddesses and other deities. She's very comforting when it comes to grief. I think it's because honestly, she really kind of, for me personally, she's really almost always really like, she's held me in this silence but it's this silence that is just so absolutely understanding, so comforting, and it's so profound that like words aren't needed on how she takes in that grief to help you understand like you don't need to fear it, and like the grief shouldn't be coming from fear, it should be more joyful, and just understanding that transformation, that transition, and that connection between life and death and all of that. She's just really really great with that. That's like I said, the second way that I really really work with her. Okay, so that's the end of the study guide. Do you guys have any questions at all? Okay. This is a much smaller class. So I have a feeling this invocation is going to be a lot shorter because you guys aren't going to need quite as much time to talk to her, because there's so few of you. So we're at the point where I call her in. Every single class, I let you guys meet the deities. I have the ability to channel and vessel them. It's something that I absolutely love to do. It takes a lot of energy, but I absolutely love to do it for you guys. So this is the time where I do that. If you don't want to participate in that, that's fine. I'm not going to feel offended. You can totally bow out. That's totally fine. If you want to participate in that, awesome. If you haven't been with me before, yes, Robin, what do you got?
I was gonna say if you are gonna hang out for this, and you have been thinking of reaching out to her, making an altar to her, watch out for signs of her in your like your daily day-to-day life. Because I had done something for Lady Hel, and then walking home from work one day, there was a deer antler on my everyday path in the middle of a city. So now this just sits on her altar because, like, I don't know who else would just throw a deer altar in the middle of a city's, what do you call it, sidewalk. So if you are thinking about reaching out to her, make sure you watch out for signs because she just might throw you something.
You're wearing a Lady Hell necklace now. I can see it.
Yeah, I always wear it. It's always around my neck. I wear
How
it
have
to
I never
work.
not noticed it before?
Probably because it's usually tucked away under my shirt.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense.
I have been called a devil worshiper for wearing that at work, though. So,
That's okay. I recently, part of the reason why I got fired is because of my religious beliefs recently. So, yeah, that's a whole other thing. Um, yeah, trust me, I totally get it, Robin. It sucks. I I'm loud and out and proud about it, so
oh,
I don't care. Anytime people, it's so funny though because they say that they fear you and it's scary, but then they ask you a million questions.
yes, yeah.
Like, and they ask you a million questions. Does this mean this? And how do you do this? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. Side note. Okay. So if you haven't been with me before, now is the time to where I give you guys about 3 to 4 minutes to actually maybe five because I need to reset that altar over there. I can see that. So I give you about 5 minutes. What I need you guys to do is get into, everybody has different verbiage for it. So a meditative state, your sacred temple, your sacred space. I use the word sacred containers because I view things very energetically. So now's the time where I would like you guys to do that. When I get back, I'm going to call in this circle. It's actually going to be a much shorter circle if you've been with me before than normal today. Just because hell is very simple. That's the best way that, like, she is very complex, but she's very simple. And it's the best way that I can say that and explain that. But so I will call in the circle and then I will actually call in her to meet you guys. It'll be through like a meditative state. Like that's really how you'll see her. She may show up to you visually, like you may actually see her. It may be something you hear, it may be something you smell, it may be something that you, a sign that you see, it may be a physical sensation, it may be even emotional sensation, it may be an energetic thing. So be open to however you are going to receive her and be open to whatever message she's going to bring to you. That is all that I asked before we go into this because we need to make sure that we're open. My energy also be coming through the circle for you. If you haven't been with before, it's very purifying. It is very cleansing. I've been told by other students to warn people. Just because if you haven't dealt with before, sometimes it can be a big punch at first. But it's nothing to be afraid of. It's like I said, it's very purifying and very cleansing. It's just what my energy does, and it's going to work through you that way. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. I will be shutting off my camera and muting myself as well so that I can get my altar reset for you guys. And then we will go from there. Everybody be centered. Let's take a deep breath in and out. And in and out. And I called the guardians and gatekeepers of the four directions. I called the guardians and gatekeepers of the four elements. I called the wisdom of the elders and the ancients. I called to all guides. I called to ancestors. I called to all beings interdimensional, all other entities. And I thank you so very much for turning your gaze towards us this afternoon. And we honor your sacred presence and thank you for being here. Call to the direction of east and the element of air, the ones who breathe new life into our being. I ask you to lift us beyond our fear and to place us on the earth grounded in understanding, where we can meet each other and to know that we are here to love each other without hesitation. I call to the element of air to help us breathe deeply, and when we exhale, to release any resistance to this moment. I call to the guardians and gatekeepers of the directions of east and the element of air. I summon you, and I thank you so much for holding the Eastern Gateway this afternoon. Call to the direction of south and the element of fire. I call to the guardians and gatekeeper of the element of fire that burns within us, that reminds us that our passion lies within us and is our deepest power. Help us to summon that within us, and help us to keep our fires burning in the darkness and through the wind and the rain. I call to the direction of south and the element of fire, and I thank you, guardians and gatekeeper, for holding the southern gateway this afternoon. I call to the spirits, and I call to the guardians and gatekeepers of the direction of west and the element of water. I call to you this afternoon, and I thank you for reminding us to flow with grace and with ease, to move within our life, within transitions, through life and death, without fear, and in the cycle of which we are meant to move. I call to the element of water and the direction of west, and I ask you to bless us with love and cleansing energy, to purify us, and to remind us to move with ease. I call to the guardians and gatekeepers of direction of west and the element of water, and I thank you so very much for holding the Western Gateway this afternoon. I call to the guardians and gatekeepers of the direction of north and the element of earth. I summon you. I call to the guardians and gatekeepers of the element of earth. I thank you for reminding us to be grounded in who we are, to be grounded in our beliefs, to be grounded in our practice. I call to you, earth, for you are the land that we walk on, you are the land that we live on, you are the land that we will return to. I call to you the element of earth to every place which I've walked on and lived. I call to the bones of my ancestors which reside within you. And I call to every living being and living creature on you. For you are the wind, for you are the blades of the grass, you are the bugs, you are the deer, you are the wolves, you are the humans. I call to the guardians and the gatekeepers of the element of earth and the direction of north. And I thank you so very much for holding the Northern Gateway this afternoon. I call to the guardians and gatekeepers, both above and below. I call to all ascended masters, spirit guides, ancestors, interdimensional beings, all other entities, any elementals, and all other energy that chooses to be here in a supportive and beneficial manner. I thank you from both above, below, and all around for holding all of the gateways this afternoon here for us. Amen. Aho. So it is. Now I'd like everybody to take a few deep breaths in and out as the circle's been cast. While you're breathing in and out, I'd like you to remember you need to remain open and willing to receive without judgment, fear, or resentment. Breathing in and out an energy of acceptance, willingness. You're letting go as you exhale the fear, judgment. Now I'd like you to go to a space, whether it's your sacred temple, whether it's the space that you're watching class right now, wherever you'd like to go to meet with Lady Hel. Now is the time to enter that space. Whether you see it as an energetic field with color, with energy, whether it's her just sitting on the bed next to you. I'd like you to visualize that space with warm and welcoming energy. More deep breaths in and out, in and out. Now I call to you, Lady Hel, Lady Hela, Mother of bones and barren flesh, the mistress of the land of the dead, the great lady of endless transformations, the ruler of afterlife in the 9 realms, the daughter to Loki, the sister to Fenrir and the world serpent, you're the protector and the protectress of the lost, the weary, and the hungry, and you greet many souls at the gate and the entrance of Helheim. Your mighty guardian and the shelter of the dead, humbly ask for you to grace us with your presence. Teach us to honor our lives, to honor our deaths, honor transformation, and to welcome it. I call to you, Lady Hel, and I ask you to be here for each and every one of the souls within this circle. They are willing and open and ready to receive whatever message you'd like to present them. Whether it's that they need help with grieving of a loved one, whether it's they need help with religious trauma, whether it's they're calling to you to understand more about themselves in the afterlife, or they need help releasing a fear of death. I call to you, Lady Hel, to please show yourself to them. Whether you reach out your skeletal hand to be kissed, you show a symbol with your rune, a hound shows up, and they simply get to feel your comforting energy. I call you and ask you ever so humbly to please be here. As she starts to arrive, be open and willing to receive her in any way she shows up to you. Again, whether she shows you her image, whether she reaches out her hand, whether you see a symbol or her rune, or you hear, see, smell something. Whether you feel a physical sensation like a hand on your shoulder, or just the energy within your sacred space. However she's choosing to present to you now, I would ask that you greet her. Greet her with respect and reverence and gratitude in whatever way feels comfortable to you. She reaches out her hands. Don't be fearful. Don't be judgmental. Accept it. Offer her a kiss of greeting. If you simply see a symbol, if you simply hear something, if you feel something, still speak out loud or bow or whatever you'd like to show her gratitude, to show her reverence, to show her respect. Remind her that you're open to her. Remind her that you're willing to accept her. Now that you've greeted her, just sit with each other. Take some deep breaths in and out and sit in that space. You may have a conversation. She may simply sit with you. You may simply just feel her. She may leave you symbols or messages. Just sit with her in this space, receiving all that she has to offer you. She's showing you her image in her face. Are you getting to see her? The vertical woman split in half gorgeous, beautiful, alive maiden, and half decomposing flesh or skeleton. She represents liminalness, she represents transformation, and she represents death. She represents duality and balance. Now that you've sat with her, however she's choosing to present to you, now is the time where you can start to speak with her and have some conversations if you'd like. She's willing to speak with you. Now is the time to ask her, are there any messages that you have to share with me? And again, make sure to remind her out loud that you are willing and open to receive whatever message it is she has to give you. Whether it's about grief, whether it's about death, whether it's about transformation, whether it's about a change that you need to have happen in your life, whether it's letting go of religious trauma and the concept of hell and eternal damnation, whether it's fully entering duality and the concept of living in both worlds, whether it's releasing the fear of death. Now I will give you guys a couple minutes in silence, breathing in and out, while you get to receive the message that she has to give to you. that you've had a few minutes with her. You can wrap up with any wrapping up thoughts or questions. Like asking her if you guys are going to work together again. You'll see her again. Make sure to thank her. Make sure to be ever so grateful for however she portrayed a message to you if she did today. And as you say thank you, you're going to see each other again. You can say see you later. If you're not, you can say goodbye. As I call her back and close our circle. I thank you, dear Lady Hel, so very much. The daughter of Loki, the goddess of afterlife, ruler of Helheim, the sister to Fenrir and the world serpent, goddess of transformation and death. I thank you so very much for being here today. We are honored and grateful, and I thank you for each and every message you delivered today to those you delivered them to. If you're going to see others here again, I thank you for that, and I ask you to do so, and I thank you for their willingness to meet you here today. Thank you so very much for being here, Lady Hel. And I release you. I call back the guardians and gatekeepers from the direction of north and the element of earth, and I thank you so very much for holding the northern gateway this afternoon. I call back the guardians and gatekeepers in the direction of east and the element of air, and I thank you so very much for being here this afternoon. I call back the direction of south and the elements of fire, and I thank you so very much, guardians and gatekeepers of the direction of south, for being here this afternoon. I call back the guardians and gatekeepers of the direction of west and the element of water, and I thank you so very much for being here this afternoon. I call back the guardians and gatekeepers, ascended masters, spirit guides, ancestors, interdimensional beings, all other entities, and any other energies that were here to be beneficial from above, below, and all around. And I thank you so very much for holding each and every one of those gateways this afternoon. And I release you. Amen. Aho. So mote it is. Okay, guys. I hope you guys got what you were hoping to get today. Every single class at the end of class, when I call in a deity, it's totally up to you guys. It's a personal experience. You don't have to share anything if you don't want to. If you'd like to, I'm open and willing to listen. Otherwise, if not, that is class today. Okay. Don't think I see. Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here with me. I do not have a magic basics class this Thursday because some people celebrate Thanksgiving, so I decided not to do that on Thursday. I personally don't celebrate it, so I was like, whatever, but some people got upset about it, so I decided to push it. But we do have next Sunday for Dark Goddess Devotionals, we're doing Kalima. I'm really excited about her. She really helps with anger, by the way. If I'm ever like being very explosive with anger and need to put myself in check, that's who I call to. So I'm super looking forward to it. Thank you so much for being here with me today, you guys. Have a good afternoon.